actually studied and worked with wine until landing a job as a wine director at Kenia Monge, one of Mario Bellozzo's Spanish restaurants, which she described as not an easy task, saying that the New York City wine business was incredibly competitive and you have to know your stuff or fake it till you make it. And she said that she used a combination of both of those things with confidence and ease. Working there, they had brought her to Spain twice, and she'd really dove and was in love with her work duties, but would end up working roughly around 70 hours a week, which is a bit dense. But she absolutely loved what she did. Her friends who own wineries have used her pictures for their labels for charities, and she was surrounded by really good people. But she decided that she'd had enough of the city life, and she said it was just too crazy for her. So what do you do when you move away from New York City? You chase your dreams. She was trying to work on getting a visa to work in Spain, hoping to make her own wine someday there. But due to Spain's economy, she was unable to do so, at least not right away. She had to wait until Spain's economy recovered, which it didn't. So she'd, in the meantime, moved to South America to work on her Spanish, volunteer, and get some experience under her belt. After about a year of traveling, she had tried to get her visa from Spain and failed to do so. So she decided to end up making the move back to her home in Colorado. Unfortunately, it wasn't the happiest of decisions because one, her dreams were failing for the meantime, but two, her father had been diagnosed with cancer. So she'd moved under there, deciding to dedicate her time to taking care of him. He did, however, end up beating cancer, but little did she know at the point in time that she would move there under the pretenses of taking care of her father, and not realizing that soon he would have to be doing that for her. So, after now being in Fort Collins, Colorado, for a little bit, Lydia was out and about one night on the 4th of July. At this point, it was 2011, and she was about 30 years old. She was out celebrating, watching the fireworks, and enjoying her classic Independence Day celebrations. It was on the 4th, however, that she was attacked by Travis Forbes. Now, Travis had intercepted Lydia when she was en route home, and apparently had started following and watching her from far away. As she was walking to her home, and she was standing next to her front door, I'm assuming she unlocked it, he had shoved her into her home. And what followed was what Lydia described as a brutal attack. She does not actually remember what exactly had happened, but here's what most reports had documented based on what the investigators could gather. Sometime after she'd entered her home forcefully, her attacker proceeded to says that it must have really hurt, but luckily has no memory of it. And as fate would have it, she'd ended up landing just in front of an arriving ambulance. So who knows how long she was actually out before someone had phoned of the fire, and she'd came to just in time for that moment. Pretty crazy. So when the medics had arrived, they'd seen her state and acknowledged that this was not simply from a fire, nor from the fall. They'd asked what had happened and if she had known who'd done this to her, to which she simply responded, "No, I did not know the man," and then suffered from a major stroke in that moment. Now, this was due to the artery clot that I was mentioning previously that was formed when she was being strangled. But she was able to establish to the medics that, one, she was attacked, two, she didn't know them, so that's very good. And the injuries that she'd ended up sustaining were very similar to what you would suffer during a high-speed car accident. Her body had swelled up and ballooned from her injuries and the impact of everything, that the only reason they were able to identify who she was from the tattoo on her leg. So, after July 5th, Lydia was completely incapacitated, could not move, eat, sleep, talk, or anything. So, Angel, why would we start the story basically from the end? Well, I saw a few news articles do it, read through everything, and after chronologically doing it, I kind of understand why they thought to do it this way, so trust the process. So little to Lydia's knowledge, the attacker and stalker of hers that night was none other than Travis Forbes, whom the police had been building a case against for an assault on another woman, but an assault that had actually ended in murder. Travis, whom was a local entrepreneur, had met Kenia Monge. I looked that up. I looked up how to say it. If they said it wrong on the news, then I don't know. And Kenia was a 19-year-old, very beautiful young woman whom had met Travis while she was drunk and completely incoherent near a popular nightclub.
is Travis, the guy who gave you a ride last night. White creepy van, smiley face. Did you get your car home okay?
April 1st, 6:56 p.m. So sure enough, based on the text messages, based on what the friends had said, this guy named Travis was the last person to see Kenya that night. So Tony had called the number over and over again, and nothing, no answer, doesn't get through. Tony ended up calling the police and filing a missing persons report on his daughter. And the police had actually found some pretty uncomfortable footage. You can YouTube this as well. It is surveillance footage of Kenya and the mystery man Travis showing up in the lobby of his apartment building. Travis had actually later told police that yes, she walked home with him and agreed to go to his place. However, in the footage, you can see her enter the lobby and then suddenly change her minds and get very hesitant. And apparently, he did want her to stay, but she actually left, saying she needed to get back to her friends. She then is seen speaking to a homeless man outside, and then briefly goes to a nearby hotel and uses the bathroom. Based on the video, she's clearly blackout drunk. She's stumbling, staggering everywhere, trying to hold herself up. But she actually returns to the front of Travis's apartment building later on. To be honest, she was probably drunk, didn't realize she didn't have a phone, and then went to the only place that she could remember close by where there was someone she knew. She is then at the front and out of nowhere flashes and is gone from the camera view. Now the police may have never known what had actually happened to her if it was not for her stepdad Tony. He had actually gotten a call back from Travis, and this call came about 48 hours after Kenya was last seen. Travis ends up telling her stepfather that he had seen Kenya stumbling out on the streets, and he had went out to ask her if she needed help. He had then apparently given her a ride back to the club in his van, but the club was closed. So he'd offered to drive her home, which she then wanted a cigarette. So they'd stopped at a nearby gas station, but realized that it was closed. But Kenya actually, apparently, had gotten out of the vehicle to bum a smoke off of a stranger. She'd end up sitting there, chatting with him, and leaving Travis on his own and walking off with this stranger. And Travis, essentially being ditched by a date, had driven home himself. Apparently, Travis had received her phone number by letting her use his phone to call her friends when they were outside of the closed club. And that's why he had her number, and that's why he was texting her to see if she was okay. So Tony, sure enough, talking to Travis, decided to meet up with him. And I understand why. This is the last person to see your daughter who's missing. You don't know him, none of the friends know him, and things seem a little strange, a little odd. So Travis actually says to meet him at the gas station where he'd last seen Kenya. So Tony said that he was concerned to meet him, to the point that he had brought his 9mm pistol with him. So he pulled up to the front and saw 2 police cars at the front waiting for him. Apparently Maria, Kenya's mother, and Tony's wife, was fearful of his safety after hearing that he was going to meet with this random person and had phoned the police. But this was good though, because they had beat Tony there, and this is when they had then taken in Travis for questioning. So Travis told detectives exactly what he had told Tony, and things seemed to add up. He even provided the detectives with an alibi, saying that he was with his girlfriend, and that she can verify this. like, no to jump. Anyway, so we're where we started now, obviously. Hi. But as you know, this woman survived and suffered a stroke while she was being wheeled in and treated. Investigators had found DNA underneath Lydia's fingernails and rushed it in for testing. Now remember, at this point they can't really hold Trevor. I keep wanting to say Travis. Oh, it is Travis. They can't really hold Travis